Yes, we had an assembly this morning with Luna. It was good.
Well, you want to brag a little bit?
There was a couple of good things that happened. First of all, on the way, it was an epic sunrise and we got to see a rainbow. And then also the fourth grade class, she's in second grade or first grade, but the fourth grade class sung a really good song to the whole school about consent. And so I really liked that as well, including the boys, which was good. So that was good. And then also they taught the whole school the words. And so the whole school was also singing along. So that was good. And then Luna won the Principal's Award this month for the risk taker. So the principal gives out an award every month and they have different profiles that they win it for, like balanced, risk taker. She goes to an IB school, if any of you know the IB curriculum. And so it was for risk taker this month. And because she did a video, that she was a part of a video where they had to show off their Mandarin class. And Luna didn't, it was Emily, the principal, just asked, is there anybody here that wasn't scripted or anything like that? Is there anybody here that would like to show on the video for their Mandarin class and show the different things that we do in Mandarin? And so Luna said, I will. She missed her recess and she didn't have any lines and she did a great job. So the principal was awarding her for just stepping up and doing it. So yeah, we were excited for her. With my bragging.
Yeah, well, you get to have
it was a good
the moments of it. I didn't know it was for risk taking, but
they do a different theme every month. So like there's the risk taker. I forget all of the IB profiles: knowledge, balance,
stepping out of your comfort zone,
sharing. Yeah. It was really cute too because the risk taker profile, they actually normally don't necessarily give it to the kids where that's easy for them. So like we know some parents that are in kindergarten and their daughter is having a really hard time adjusting to kindergarten and cries every single day, even still. And she was afraid. Her parents said we made the mistake of telling her that she was winning an award today. And so she'd have to go up and stage in front of the whole school. And then the parents whose kids also won awards because they give them out for each grade. And so she was crying all morning and didn't want to go to school. And then she was so cute. Because she's really shy. And so she went up on stage and was super brave. And so the teacher gave her an award for, there's a lot of things that you have to do to step out of your comfort zone. And so it's really sweet that they recognize, for the most part, Luna's not really that way. Luna's fine taking risks normally. And we're definitely parents who encourage that. But they were kind of giving it to the kids that it was kind of out of their comfort zone to be risk takers. So I loved to watch that as well, that's a part of the culture of this school, which was nice because it was so that was really sweet too. And I like that it's recognizing the small things of people, having courage when things are hard, so that was really, really nice too. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, and it's relevant to all of us as adults too.
Yes. Isn't that true?
It's not just a kid subject or, and Jess, I read your comment, and as soon as you started talking about the young girl being so shy and crying every day, and going through that with Ava, my other granddaughter, who's now 17, one of the things I really noticed for her, and this may be, I'm bringing this up in this group because I think it's relevant to so many of us, is that they are so empathic.
Yeah.
And they pick up all the energies of everyone around them, but they don't know what to do with that. And so with Ava, my oldest granddaughter, that was her, she's really empathic. And so I've been able to at least help her be aware of it and give her some of the Reiki tools to manage it. And, we talk about empathy in this group all the time, because what we observe is it's, as our community of people, we're typically pretty empathic people, sympathetic people, and we easily connect in with all the feelings. And there's skills involved in being able to manage it, but also empower those abilities into the areas of the higher frequencies of empathy. So there are those the empathies of the emotions. So like right now, we've been talking about authenticity, and last week we talked about the Pluto moving into Aquarius and the actual physical feelings that are running through our bodies from this shift in energy. And the empathy, for me, it's one of the things I really use Reiki for. And I create that. We talked about this last week too, creating that field. Like for me, it's not quote protection when I put Reiki all around me, above me, below me, and you can do it however it is that you have, the time for, the moment for. But to me, it's a filter, and a filter for the external energies and my own energy also. So what is coming from me and outward too. And it helps me to not get scattered into the external stress that's out there and empathic or empathy. So I'm going to go ahead and tie all this together to what we planned to talk about today, and we started talking about, and it's kind of a consistent conversation because for me it was a really huge healing in my life. And that was part of me becoming authentic to myself, being able to hear myself, was to really become self-aware about my opinions. And so it became this huge, years-long study of my opinions. And some of that occurred really as my kids were becoming adults themselves. So becoming the parent of adult children, and how do you do that successfully when, they're going through their independence and self-development and choices and decisions. And sometimes they want you to have an opinion, and other times they don't want you to have any opinions. Danny, I'm not talking to you specifically, but we've been having these conversations. So anyway, many of you relate. And, teenagers, the whole thing. I mean, just relationships too. Well, right now, of course, as we know, opinions are just rampant. And people are flinging their opinions, yelling their opinions, sometimes suppressing opinions, sometimes confused about your opinions. And the reason that we think this is such a valuable topic to talk about with Reiki is because I used Reiki to actually become self-aware about my opinions. And I wrote an article about it years ago. The quick history of that development myself was in my spiritual, research and self-development was about judgment. And that I wanted to, just shift into being, less judgmental. And then at the same time, still having judgment. So it's like one of those where there's, you really, speaking of duality and oppositions. So what that did was really made me look at my opinions. It made me, I mean, you know how that can be when you decide you're going to focus on something. Now it was like everything was about it. I was just getting bombarded with it. And opinions directed at me, at my kids, my choices, other things, and my own opinions about others. And so when I really looked at it and started using Reiki, and they're going back to that distance symbol, going deep, deep within what is true for me, I really learned to ask some questions about them and to use Reiki for it. And it gave me, it has been that and becoming a good listener, those have been like provided me with some of the greatest freedom in my life. So I'm going to go through some of the questions. And I wrote this in the article, and we'll put a link to that article with our YouTube description on Thursday. So I'm going to read you some of the questions that I learned to ask myself. Okay, so let's just go ahead and take some deep breaths as you listen to these questions. So take some deep breaths, maybe even just place your hands on yourself. Close your eyes for a moment. And you don't have to have anything in particular, just moving into another place of being receptive. And we're inviting the Reiki energies to just fill our breath, the space around us, flowing through our bodies and going deeply within, inviting that distance symbol to go inward. Now the mental emotional symbol, SHK. Communications. Maybe place one of your hands on your throat chakra. And I would say your third and your fifth. So your solar plexus and your fifth. Just take some deep breaths and receive. And all of the different Reiki symbols, but those two. And then the power symbol that's going to let go of the things that are in the way of listening in this area about your opinions. And moving into empowering what is authentic to you. And I will tell you, go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and open my eyes. You can stay that way. But I will tell you, I come back to this often enough when I struggle in these areas because I'm still human and there are opinions to be had. But the discernment about the truth for me is where we go. What is true for me? So I'm going to just take a moment now. You've just listened and just listen to these questions to reflect on about your opinions. Does this opinion belong to you? Sometimes this question was a big one for me that I really came to understand in the reflection. Some of the opinions were given to me by my family, my generation, culturally created self. And does it actually belong to me, or is it maybe even one that I heard and decided I kind of liked, so I grabbed it, but really without going more in depth with it to understand it? And is it true for me? Does it belong to me? Is it true? and true for you? Do you really believe the opinion? And now here it is for me. Does it help me? Does it help you or anyone else? Does it create solutions? Here's another one. What's the result of you expressing your opinion? And does that benefit you? Does it benefit? And is it a positive or a negative result? Does your opinion cause conflict? And is the conflict necessary or important in the grand scheme of life? Does your opinion make you right and the other person wrong? Doesn't matter. Are you just repeating someone else's opinion without really thinking about it? And then most of all, ask yourself if there's anything you can do about your opinion and if you have the ability to affect positive change with it. If so, are there actions that you are going to take around your opinion? And what would be the result? And then how would it feel to have fewer opinions? And what if you let go of the ones that aren't yours or that you can't do anything about? And then for me, this is the big one, is the amount of time you spend thinking about your opinions in proportion with your ability to be effective. So now some of that discussion is kind of based on more negative opinions. There's also positive opinions, things that you can affect change within yourself first. It's all, this is also for you to be more peaceful within you. And in that empathy that we talked about, what if you elevate to the more positive opinions that do create another result, positive result? And for me, that I had to do a lot of like self-reflection, Reiki. This is a practice that's ongoing for me. It's not a like then and done, because we discuss it in our team meetings together. It is something that we talk about, like, where can we go with how we can utilize Reiki in a way that has, a connection into the higher thoughts, mind, consciousness that do create a result, both in our personal lives, individually, together, but also then how we bring these ideas here, because I think that's what Reiki does. It entrains us, and it kind of goes back to that idea of empathy. With when we're empathic, we can connect into all the different bands of thought and frequency and feelings. Well, we also can entrain into the higher thought and higher bands and frequencies. And so having the Reiki energy that naturally pulls us up into it, but then also allowing ourselves to be in self-awareness with some of these skill builders. For me, this is like these questions that I just read. That's what's in my article from Reiki News Magazine. And I don't remember where it is.
We put it in the chat. It's called Reiki Clarifies Opinions.
So for me, it was, I guess a lot of those questions were because I was really transitioning from just, being an opinionated person, flinging my opinions around without thought. And that's what for me was helpful, to really use Reiki to recognize, first of all, that I was doing that. And then, of course, it was sometimes when so I will say, if you investigate this, let's say gently, bring in gently, because I would say my process with it it was a pretty, but I intended to really study this on multidimensional levels. So on a spiritual level, and then also on a personal level. And then, like I say, so much of it applied in that moment in my life cycle with my kids becoming their own adults, and who was I as the parent of adult children, the grandparent of adult children raising their children. How do I do that in a good way? So it was for those things. We know right now there's a lot of opinions because social media. I mean, I was even studying all of this really before social media was the way it is. And so it was a little bit easier. And also, of course, we know we have these, as we keep saying, could we just stop having these unprecedented events? So, opinions are there. And Robyn, I see you taking your.
Yeah, I have a couple of things to add. The first one is that I will say you going through this investigation has been really helpful for me. I'm just now 40, and we've talked a lot about this. And as a person, as a friend, as a family member, as a parent, as a spouse, all of these different roles that we each have, that I'm also a little bit glad that I learned this somewhat early, because as you said, it's very helpful. It's not to say that I don't. I mean, I'm a lot younger, so there are the age and wisdom things that I may not have come across yet. And that's okay too. But also the investigation of my own viewpoint of it all, right? Because even though I have learned through your journey around it, I'm still going to have my own viewpoint of how this all works for me. But I will say that we've been, especially professionally, working together, things like that. There's another side of this coin, for that I've learned through this kind of journey, and also working together and respecting each other's opinions, and also not having opinions and those kinds of things as well. Or I should say not having opinions, but going into your authentic opinions. Also, like you said, with social media, me, it came out when I was in college, started when I was in college in the MySpace days, those days. That is another level of, different perspective from that journey for me, being on social media at a different age than you. And so, and deciding somewhere along the line, do I feel called to be a keyboard warrior or do I not? Some of those kinds of things. I have found that for myself, I don't like to be a keyboard warrior, but some people do. And so I don't, it's not like a judgment around any of what we're called to. It is just an understanding that we can look at it from a different perspective through this lens than how we might have before and going around it. I also wanted to address a couple of the things in the chat, because some people were saying that that it's actually kind of been the opposite for them, that their opinions were very suppressed, especially growing up. I know that that's a thing in your generation, Colleen, but then it's even more of a thing depending on upbringing, depending on maybe certain relationships that people would have had where opinions were suppressed. And so it's still the journey of learning about that, but it might be from the opposite end of the spectrum, that I had to learn how to have opinions because my opinions were so suppressed. But here, even in that journey of that process is still an authentic viewpoint for you, that you might be coming at it from a different perspective than Colleen, right? There's two separate kind of opinions, and it's a little deeper than an opinion because I know we have a certain viewpoint of that word. I know it's a deeper meaning than the word opinion. When we're really investigating, when we're really healing, when we're really revealing those parts of ourselves, either the parts that may be overly loud or the parts that have been suppressed. But you might have a different opinion on this journey than Colleen would, as the examples that she just used. But that's the beauty of still investigating it, that you get to go into your own authentic journey around that. And like, okay, well, my journey with this is actually going into how do I even voice opinions or boundaries, or, how do I voice advice or suggestions or things like that, because it has been suppressed. So I think that is another kind of another side to this that I think we kind of can all appreciate that you brought that up in the chat. And I know, Colleen, that you have had that part of this as well, where it's the seen, not heard, and working through that, even in relationship to your need to have your opinion heard. I know for me,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know you have something to add to that. I'll just kind of finish up. I know that having learned this piece from Colleen of having a young child as a parent, that I know that we've shifted in our generational ideas around this. And as a child, my parents were pretty good at allowing me to be heard, but it's in the culture. It's even changed more from when I was a kid to now. And it's only a couple generations difference. And, it also affects me as a parent in a positive way, that I definitely, make sure that Luna feels heard, that she knows she's heard, that I, am always asking her to kind of go into her authentic opinions around things, because even as a kid, you're influenced by your peers, you're influenced by cultures, you're influenced by all of these different things. And if she can be within her own authentic opinion around things, can that culturally created self be a little less thick, where she is a little more used to listening to her authentic self as well. And so as a parent raising a child or children, it's also a really helpful concept for me that I've been very grateful for, between the opinions and the listening. Two things that Colleen has really mentored me on as a mom, but also as a business partner and a business mentor. That it has been extremely, extremely helpful, and I'm actually really grateful for that. So go ahead, Colleen. I know you had more to share about the
Oh, no, that's
seen and not
okay.
heard.
Yeah, well, no, that's okay, because we'll go into the kind of guided meditation, because I can feel it for really being helpful for people too. But I would say, reflecting on that idea of being seen and not heard, that's what made me, that my reaction to that as an adult then was to be more opinionated and loud with it. So I would say it was still a suppression and a way of finding my voice. And then now with Reiki, it's like, well, wait, what's really true for me?
Yeah.
And so I would say that probably there's all kinds of reactions to this. And I love that that we're talking about it from the perspective of all the different reactions we can have, like having none, not knowing even how to have them, to the spectrum of they're constant and loud in our head. As the saying goes, living rent free in my head.
Yeah.
Could I not have that floating around in my head and that argument going on in my head, or, whatever that is, and take it into the higher frequencies of that is what I want in my head instead, what I'd rather think about.
Well, and the being able to hear when, like you said before, it's authentic, and the time to and not share, because even it's not like you don't necessarily have opinions about things, even if you don't necessarily share them. It's about going into, okay, that I've got this opinion about something. It's clarifying it, just like the title of the article. Do I need to share this? Do I not need to share this? Is this a me problem rather than the other person problem, right? Because that's really a lot of where it comes down to too. I know that for me, it's like, well, this has nothing to do with them. It only has to do with me. And I see the same for others that have opinions that affect my life. This has nothing to do with me. It's all about, it's about them, and whatever their stuff is, it's about them as opposed to it being about me. And that's been, over the last few years, a really big lesson, a really big piece of having to navigate my life and the world, and all of that kind of thing. So,
well, I'll just finish up with, and then are you doing the
it's you
meditation?
today. Yeah, it's you today.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me. Okay. So the thing I'll finish with this is, I would have to say these two things: that the being able to understand and be self-aware about my opinions, and then also becoming a good listener. Those two things have just brought so much freedom into my life. It's like, to suddenly realize I don't have to engage in it all. It's like, whew. And some of them that I do have to, then I do, so it's not like I'm living in an oblivious world, but I have discernment, and the Reiki energy works with discernment so well. So really, if this is even relevant for you and a topic that's relevant for me, just start with invite Reiki. And it's like Reiki can make it pretty effortless. And, it can be
Maybe
as simple as just receive it.
Sometimes it can. Other times our journeys might be a little more challenging with this. I do.
I said that to set an intention into the
Yes.
topic.
Grace and ease. We will take
It's
it always.
effortless.
We will always take it with grace and ease. I will say too, Colleen, you said before with your it's not meaning that we're necessarily passive. So it's not about being passive. I don't think very many people would, describe Colleen or I as passive people. So it's not necessarily about being that. Sometimes it is, because I'm just like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's fine. I don't need to have an opinion about this. It's a different level than that. It's listening at a higher frequency of it all. And that Reiki can really help you to do that. And it helps you to also be stable and be kind.
Yeah. And so I only see Zoom user, and I'll just add to that, you do get to have boundaries with it still. Yeah. Doesn't mean just letting everything go. I still have my boundaries, and sometimes have to place them when other people's opinions are too impactful. And I would say Reiki helps me with that, because that was also a whole process. Maybe we need to do a whole talk on that.
Boundaries?
Boundaries, yeah. Like in this, you get to have boundaries for sure. So, and then sometimes it's like, well, my boundary has to stretch here, and okay. So, or maybe I don't know what it is yet. So anyway, thanks. I feel like it's such a big and important topic. I really do want to do a good job with the healing aspect of this, and the empowerment of your own truth with what is true for you. That's where this always goes, is we let go of some of the things that are in the way, and old habits and things like that. But ultimately what Reiki's doing is empowering what is actually true for you. So this moves more from letting go of what isn't true into empowerment within you, and your authentic voice, your authentic heart, and what is true for you, and your ability to hear yourself and also speak your truth when you choose.